Welcome to the Pulse with Peter B. I'm your host, Peter Biancamano. Let's get you to the pulse on everything you need to know. And today's show is brought to you by the Pilsner House and Beer Garden. Visit our friends at 1422 Grand Street in Hoboken. Have some beer, have some pretzel, have some wings, some brats, and I'm sure you'll see our resident political analyst, Josh Sotomayor-Einstein, stuffing his face there every day. But we'll take care of him in the next segment. Joining us this week, making his return 2 weeks in a row, it is our sports insider, Mr. Bobby Blackjack, after predicting the Super Bowl correctly last week. Bobby,
yes, I did. I had to sweat out a little bit towards the end there, but yes, I had the Rams winning, and they did.
Exactly. You did say by a touchdown, and they only won by a field goal, but that's okay because we've had people in the past be completely wrong. So you're 1-0.
That's I'll take it anytime.
Exactly. And you know what I did, Bobby?
What's that?
I booked a trip to L.A. because I thought my Dallas Cowboys were going to be in the Super Bowl, of course. And, of course, they lost in the wild card round, correct? So I changed my flight, went to Florida this past weekend. And while I was golfing, I kept the sunglasses on way too long.
Oh, boy, I can tell.
You know, I mean, like, ridiculous.
Mind you, I'm reading already some early predictions for next Super Bowl. Dallas versus Buffalo.
So you're saying I should book my trip to, where is it, Miami next year, I believe?
Glendale, Arizona.
Oh, Arizona. Okay, all right. And then I won't make the detour. And if I do, I'll take the sunglasses off.
Yes.
All right, we're moving on to some college hoops here, baby.
Here we are.
And, our friends over at the Jersey Sports Report, where we stole Bobby from, covered Seton Hall greatly 2 years ago. And why not bring them up again? Because the Big East tournament's coming up in a little less than a month. But we want to focus on those Pirates. My alma mater, your alma mater.
Yes.
A lot of people's alma mater that work on this show. They are inconsistent, to say the word correctly. Correct, Bobby?
They're consistently losing in January, and that's unfortunately affecting the team come March Madness time. So we'll see what happens. They were on a mini 3-game winning streak that was ended by Villanova last week, and now they have a game against UConn, big game, and then back home against DePaul.
Exactly. So, and we are filming this segment a little earlier than those games, so we can't give you a spoiler because then we would be in Vegas betting on them. Let's talk a little bit about Kevin Willard. I think it's important we do so because, I believe this is his 12th season now at the helm. 13th season around there. He's got a losing record in Big East play. But yet, you watch all the quote-unquote experts, and I think the only expert is you, Bobby.
I agree.
They say what a wonderful job he's doing with the program and so on and so forth. But to me, a losing record in Big East play is not that great. Do you think that his time at Seton Hall might be over too soon?
If it's going to be over, it's not going to be because of his losing record in the Big East. It's because a bigger fish or a perceived bigger fish want him, like Maryland or Louisville. Louisville is where he actually came from and got his college basketball coaching start with Rick Pitino. So if we're going to lose Kevin Willard, and I'm not going to lose a tear if we do, honestly, it's because of a better opportunity.
Better opportunity, yeah. And these are bigger schools that are going to pay him a lot more money. So I guess it's good playing in the Big East, which is a New York market, as they say. Speaking of the Big, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say he didn't really win many fans last month when he kind of complained about Walsh Gym when they lost to St. John's. He complained, I like the Prue Center better. You kind of like, I believe there's a big donor coming in with a big donation to build a basketball-only facility on campus.
Wow.
And it's you kind of don't want to say that when there's potential money's coming in from a donor and you want to slam your in-school facilities.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, let's talk about the talent on the team because I know when you have covered the team and our colleagues at the Jersey Sports Reporters cover the team, they've said that they're very, very good kids. They're very educated. They come across, well-mannered and so on and so forth. And the talent is there. Why can't players like Jared Rhoden, take it to the next level? I go back to the inconsistency that we were talking about earlier.
Now, next level, you're meaning pro basketball, or what are your?
No, what I'm saying is, you have Miles Powers of the world,
Okay,
who really put the teams on the shoulder.
Well,
it seems Miles Cale and Jared Roden, are struggling. Correct? Yeah.
It just is. Jared Roden is a very, very passionate player. Normally, if I'm covering a game, I'm right there on the first row on court side. I see what he's doing. I see his mannerisms. He's a leader, but he's also very passionate. Sometimes the passion gets too immense, and it kind of throws his game off a little bit. Miles Cale is a consistent player. He has been for years, and he has the distinction now of playing the most games ever with a Pirate uniform on because of the COVID year. That might never be broken.
6 years in the playing college basketball.
So I think both of them will carry this team into the NCAA tournament. But we got to start playing more, like you said at the beginning, more consistently.
Right, exactly. And of course, the loss of Bryce Aiken does not help. I mean,
which is like the most bizarre concussion I've ever seen. We cover football, right? Mm-hmm. You see guys get concussions. Out maybe a week and a half. This is almost 3 weeks now he's out. I know it's the second one, and they're being precautious. The last game when I was there, he had earplugs on to kind of mute the in-arena noise, which probably affects him some. So hopefully he's back soon. I believe Coach Willard mentioned maybe for Saturday's game. We'll see.
We'll see. All right. Now, let's talk about the rest of the Big East, because you have those Providence Friars shocking the world. Earlier this week, they did lose to Villanova, but that was a number 8 versus a number 10, and they should still hold their heads up high. Would you say, in years past, you used to think it was Villanova and everyone else? Providence is showing that they belong in the conversation for the best team in the Big East.
Here's the one thing about Providence, though. Yes, they belong. They've been playing outstanding basketball all season long. We lost to them on a COVID-shortened roster. That's right. They forced us to play that game, and when we went to go make that game up, all of a sudden there's no space in the schedule. Mm-hmm. Kind of unfair. All right, give us a chance to redeem that loss, and we're not going to get it. But I'm sure we'll see Providence somewhere down the line in the Big East tournament, and they are playing great. Nova's Nova. I mean, Nova to me is like the Red Sox or your Cowboys. Teams I'm learning to really hate year in, year out, and we'll see.
Well, the difference between Nova and my Cowboys is Nova has won many championships. Yeah. Well, a different story for a different time. Yeah. Exactly. And now, is there a team in the Big East that you think is a sleeper going in? It used to be Creighton, I feel like. I mean, do you think that besides the Providences, the Villanovas, and to a lesser extent the UConns of the Big East, is there a sleeper that might make a run in the Big East tournaments?
I think it's going to be, if it's not us, because I think we're falling below sea level a little bit, right, with our expectations. I think it's going to be UConn. Okay. UConn has a veteran team with some young players like Sonogo and Cole, who could lead them to the promised land come March. So I see that being UConn being that team.
UConn being that team. All right. Now, we asked a poll question a little earlier this week when we put up our preview. Will Seton Hall make the NCAA tournament? We know they'll obviously be in the Big East tournaments. What do you think, Bobby? What is your prediction for late February here?
I believe UConn and maybe Xavier are the last two games that they potentially could lose on paper. The rest of the schedule is in their favor, so I see them riding a little tidal wave of victories into March, into Big East, and then to the NCAA tournament. It will take a total collapse, like losing to DePaul and Georgetown. Bad losses for us to not make it.
Right. All right. Well, Bobby Blackjack, our sports insider. Now I feel like I can say this every week here on The Pulse with Peter Bay. He will be back in the in the near future, I should say, discussing, of course, the other New Jersey team that, as Seton Hall guys, we really don't care about. But that's but I know there's plenty of people at home that do. And that's the Rutgers Scarlet Knights and the Big Ten. Are you excited? We're going to talk about basketball?
Of course. I have a lot of friends in Rutgers. More on the football team side because I used to cover Rutgers football. So it'll be fun to go back and see what the team's actually doing as I look a little more in depth.
All right. Well, stay tuned for that. Bobby, thanks again for coming in.
Anytime.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We will be right back. Peter Biancamano, your hostess with the mostest of the Pulse with Peter B. Folks, don't forget to go on our Facebook and our Instagram pages by searching The Pulse with Peter B. and like and follow us on each of those platforms. We're constantly updating those pages with previews of each week's segments and cool stories. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our email address at thepulsewithpeterb@gmail.com.
Welcome back. I'm your host with the most, not hostess, because I am a male, on this segment of the Pulse with Peter B, but I am joined by someone that's even better than Peter B, which is a low bar, so don't get excited, Cheryl. But it is my pleasure to have on this segment with us Cheryl Fallick, who's done so much for the community as an advocate on so many issues across Hoboken, and not just limited to Hoboken. So thank you so much for joining us, Cheryl.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
So what has been going on in Hoboken?
Well, there's something pretty exciting that's about to start up, and it kind of happened in the aftermath of this recent referendum that we had on the public school.
Board of Education
The Board
referendum.
of Ed, yeah, and you probably have heard a little bit about this as well. I think having that referendum and having so many people in Hoboken being taken by surprise, thinking, maybe I should pay a little more attention, and I've a person who's now participating in a new group called Hoboken Watchdogs. And we are going to focus on 4 separate, relatively broad areas in town. And we're having our first meeting at February 28th at Willie McBride's at 7 p.m. So I'm hoping that we can get a lot of interest. The sense I get in Hoboken right now is that people are paying attention to what's going on. So we want to give everybody an outlet.
And full disclosure for our viewers out there in TV land and in digital, I too am part of this group, and I'm so happy to be working with Cheryl and Sheila Brennan and Rosemary Markle about a project that's post-partisan or non-partisan. It's just about good government, wouldn't you say?
Good government. It's definitely nonpartisan. Yeah.
So
it's issues-oriented for Hoboken specifically.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and anytime you can have someone of our differing political views under the same roof, I think you have a good idea there, right?
Probably, yeah. It's definitely a good way to find common ground when the communication is open and good and open-minded to people with different ideas.
So speaking of open and good and transparent, all the things our local government isn't, what are the issues that Hoboken Watchdog is going to be focusing on?
Basically, it's 4 things or 4 categories. The first one is land use. The second one is, and that's all land use or zoning, planning, anything having to do with the land, and actually the built environment on top of it. We also have sort of, I hate it, the word is a little strong, but it's an easy one for everybody to understand. Any kind of sort of corruption happening in town. We have a long history of that. Also, these sort of ancillary, not so much boards, but utilities. The Business Alliance, the Housing Authority, maybe the Parking Authority. A lot of people are focused on that. And then the last thing, and probably my favorite, are the boards in town, because a lot of stuff happens at the boards in town. And now, if we have people watching, maybe the community won't be so surprised by upcoming legislation. There are always public portions at board meetings, so that's also a way for board members on specific boards. I'm not on one anymore. I was for years.
What was the board that you were on?
I was on the rent control board from 2009 until January, I guess until December 31st was when my term ended. And because of those public portions, I know that many times when I was on the board, I was wishing the public knew what was happening there. So that's one, and that's a very human board, because you're talking about people living in places and people owning places. The zoning and planning boards, I've certainly attended a lot of those. They may be a little bit more sort of numbers and less human-oriented, but if you think about the big picture, these are properties being torn down, properties being built up, the built environment in general. So that's my favorite. As you can tell, I just focused on it a little bit, but everything is important.
Oh, 100%. And I think when we talk about land use, a lot of it is land abuse. With the city hall cutting special deals for their donors or potential donors or people they want to woo. The regular Joes don't get treated the same way as the people that have the deeper pockets. And I think that feeds into what we were talking about before with corruption, because I think it's important for people to understand that there's illegal corruption, the $10,000 in an envelope slid under a table, and then there's legal corruption where the donor gets special treatment that, again, the regular Joe would not. So
we also have had a couple of little things like recently, and I don't have all the full details, but there was a situation where the ABC board attorney was also associate corporation counsel. He's not the ABC board attorney anymore, but there was a bar in town that was before the ABC board for something, and their lawyer was a lawyer that this associate corporation counsel in Hoboken worked for. So there was some question, and I do believe that there's been a holdup on like getting information via Oprah. There's been a lot of delays. Some people are trying to get that. So that's that is something that I hope that Hoboken Watchdog will be able to put pressure on, like what's happening here with our Oprahs. Mm-hmm. I have an Oprah in right now, and I just got a request for a 60-day delay. And I'm not quite sure that,
Well, for viewers out there that don't know, what is an Oprah?
Open Public Records Act. So anything that the government is doing, you can file an Oprah, and you can do it via the city's website. And they have to deliver it to you. I think they have 7 business days or 7 days, I'm not sure which, to either provide the information or explain why they're not providing the information. And I do believe they get 1 extension. So they just asked for a really big one with mine. Oh, wow. And go ahead.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Mine had to do with rent controller. I'm obviously, want to keep an eye on that since I'm not on there anymore. And there was a tweet that I saw that was a little concerning.
Well, what did it say?
It looked like there was a scheduled meeting of the board that wasn't publicly noticed. I actually haven't followed up on my Twitter, so I can't give you any more details. But I certainly hope there aren't like little private secret meetings of the rent board and the mayor, because it is a quasi-judicial board. So
yeah, now that you said it, I do remember hearing something about that. Someone told me something about a tweet. I'm not on Twitter myself. But if that is the case, that the mayor convened or was trying to convene a meeting of the rent board, he's probably in violation of our sunshine laws, which mean that government boards have to do everything out in the clear so that the people can know about it, so there's no shady decisions that are made. And I'm not casting aspersions on anyone on the board. I am casting aspersions on the Bala administration, because power corrupts. Absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. It's a maxim because it's true, not because necessarily Bala is extra corrupt, although personally I think he is. That's really bad news for the people of Hoboken. That's kind of why, that's kind of the reaction that people had to the Board of Education referendum, because they were hiding this project for 2 years, and the people were so annoyed that they just said, no, you don't have the right to put this before us when you knew about it for 2 years, and now you're saying hurry up and vote.
Kind of, yes. I think it was very much a shock to the system, and I would say even if the board thought they were coming at this from a this is good for the community perspective, the big mistake was that they left the community out of the equation, and we all can end up in our own little bubble. So I think that's a place where I do not think I would have supported that plan even if I had known about it for 2 years. I probably would have spent 2 years saying, oh my God, $241 million. But nonetheless, to spring it on the public was definitely a shock to the system. And I don't know how much a citizen would have known had they been attending school board meetings regularly, but maybe they would have, and maybe they would have asked questions. So it would have created a more transparent environment, and we certainly need that. For too long, I think everybody was just not paying attention, and that maybe caused everybody to say, you know what, I really should be paying attention so bad things don't happen, knowing that some people thought that would have been a good thing. But to me, it wasn't a good thing.
Understood. Well, thank you so much, Cheryl, for coming on. Remember, everybody, Hoboken Watchdog, February 28th, 7 p.m., back at Willie McBride's. And stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Peter Biancamano back with you. Don't forget to watch us on cable access every Sunday and Monday at 9 a.m. Optimum Channel 18, Files Channel 46, and Comcast Channel 190. Also on Sunday mornings at 9:30 a.m., you can watch our show on our YouTube channel, and you can also binge watch all of our old shows. Who doesn't want to keep watching The Pulse with Peter B? We'll see you there. Welcome back to The Pulse with Peter B. Peter Biancamano, back in the host chair. And thank God for that. It's a little squeaky after Josh Sotomayor-Einstein has been sitting in here. But we want to thank Cheryl Fallick for coming in. She did a remarkable job, as always. And, you know, Josh is Josh. But we have a Pulse premiere today in our last segment, and that is Mr. Marc Aschoff, who is the co-owner of the Tribeca Beverage Company here in Hoboken. Marc, welcome to the Pulse.
Peter, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Exactly. So it's funny, when you reached out to me, Marc, I thought beverage. I thought maybe alcohol. And then, of course, I was like, before I actually call him, let me do a little research. And I noticed that you do the most important beverage there is out there, you know, and that is the H2O. It is a water company. Talk to me a little bit about how you started Tribeca Beverage Company.
First of all, I wish I was reaching out to people about alcohol. But then my night would become my daytime too, right?
Exactly.
So me and my partner started Tribeca Beverage Company about 4.5, 5 years ago at this point. And we got into it, ironically, selling sodas before we got into selling water to restaurants. That lasted for a couple months. Eventually, that was just a crazy difficult business to be in. And we ended up exiting that and entering the water market. And we sell water by the 5-gallon jug mostly. We carry in other sizes, but since October of, I think, 2017, we pretty much mainly focused in almost exclusively water and water-related products. And it's just been booming ever since. And I'm real fortunate in the sense that, you know, we found a niche market. Even the water, you'd think it's everywhere. There's not a ton of people in it. And we've been fortunate that we've been able to provide great service, have a lot of happy customers. A few mistakes along the way, actually a couple thousand mistakes along the way, but if I, you know, got to a point where we've got a great team and really excited about everything that we've done so far.
Interesting. Okay, so, you know, because right away you mentioned 5-gallon water jugs, and the first thing I can think of is, wait a minute, you know, can't Deer Park or these other, you know, larger companies, you know, deliver that? Like, you know, you talk about water cooler conversations at the office.
Sure.
But there is a difference, obviously.
Well, so a couple things, right? You know, and the Poland Spring, Deer Parks, Nestle Pure Life, obviously they're, you know, Goliaths in the industry. And where we kind of differentiate ourselves is really two different aspects. One, we do alkaline water, which is not something that you often see in the 5-gallon jug really at all. And two, our delivery service, while not perfect, I'd like to think our ability for servicing customers, close communication, easy to reach us, easy access, and our ability to execute the delivery, because we are a smaller team, which might sound strange, right, because we have far less resources than somebody like a Deer Park or a Poland Spring, but because there's a closer knit line of communication between me and the drivers and me and the staff and me and my partner, we're really able to execute a lot more deliveries a lot more efficiently than a gigantic team such as you know, the people over at Poland Spring, who I think, while they might have a ton more resources than us, you know, the communication factor becomes that much more difficult, only because of the size that they're at. And in some degrees, I'm pretty jealous, you know. I'd love to have the problem that they're having. And while we're small, we're able to talk to each other in the office, and we have an idea of where everybody is all the time. But if I got to their size, I'd probably have a similar level of problems or stress.
So it's interesting because you're almost like the local water guy. Because, you know, we like to joke on the Pulse that, you know, we're more local than, you know, you can be local, basically. I mean, we're extremely hyper local, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, and it's important for the audience to know this. I mean, you know, you almost build a relationship with your customers because you're so local, and you know, so do you deliver in mainly Hudson County, North Jersey, New York City, or are you starting to expand into other areas?
So, given the name Tribeca Beverage Company, we started with the sodas in New York. but we started with the water delivery in New Jersey. We have a pretty large presence in Hudson County, and I think part of that is not between our marketing and our word of mouth, and the fact that I happen to live in Hoboken myself because I am a Hoboken resident. We do have a large presence in Hudson County. There's no doubt about it. But we also have a pretty good grasp in New York City, the metropolitan area in general. But we love doing work down in Hudson County. I love to hear every time we get a customer in Hoboken or Jersey City. It's nice knowing that we're kind of servicing the people around our community, and it is flattering sometimes when I'm taking a street or walking down the street of Hoboken and I see my bottle being left out. It feels like an accomplishment.
Yeah, exactly. Taking a picture of it.
Yeah,
and
what is that doing there? What is that? Let me clean that real quick.
Exactly. And obviously the pandemic and now the supply chain issues, which is of course is part of the pandemic, has been affecting small businesses greatly. How has it affected Tribeca Beverage Company? And do you foresee it being an issue going forward?
Well, so the pandemic's been crazy in so many sorts. Obviously, sad and devastating from the health aspect, right, and the fact that people obviously were getting diagnosed with COVID. But from business standpoint, there was actually the beginning ended up being a big boost in business, which was fantastic. Now, a lot of water deliveries take place at offices, and that's definitely true. And we do a fair amount of water delivery in offices, and that did die, right in the early stages of the pandemic. But this work from home model that a lot of companies end up endorsing, as I saw my commercial deliveries die down, my residential were doubling or tripling because now, the people that were spending 8 hours in the office are now spending 8 hours drinking water at their home. In addition to that, we also saw a surge of customers who, for obvious reasons, didn't want to go to their local supermarket, and water delivery became a must. So we definitely got a big boost of business there. Now, if we fast forward to now, right, when you see all these supply chain issues, we've been able to get by, a little bit, actually, backtrack a little bit, not now, but backtrack a little bit. When we were, at one point it was difficult, definitely finding workers and people willing to drive, particularly as the pandemic was at its height. We were able to get past that. I'm really grateful for the team that we have. But fast forward back to now with the supply chain issue, it's an interesting point that you definitely brought up. And I see it in ways that you don't always expect to, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the big costs that you can imagine is just the plastic bottles that we buy. Mm-hmm. And the idea of having those plastic bottles delivered, because long-haul truckers and the cost of plastics have risen, right. The rates get unreasonable. And unfortunately, to some degree, some of it does get passed down to the consumer. But we do everything we can, or we at least attempt to try to minimize the extra expenses that we're getting hit with, so we can continue to kind of maintain a great service for the customers. But I would say the supply chain issue, we were getting hit from all different areas, really more just miscellaneous and random expenses, things that you didn't think were normally a problem. Plastic is kind of the most obvious one.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, we have a few seconds here, Mark, and I think it's important that we tell viewers how they can get the best tasting water that they'll have delivered right to their homes. If it's a person who's interested in possibly becoming a new customer of yours, what can they do? What are their options?
So the easiest thing to do is visit our website, tribecabeverage.com, and go online. There's a place to order your online, enter your information, and we try to have your water delivery as quickly as possible. Or you're more than welcome to give us a call at 973-913-4568. First customer or first 10 customers who mention Peter's name gets a free deli sandwich.
Oh, there you go.
No, just kidding.
Mom and Dad, he's kidding.
But yeah, if you mention Peter's name, we'll give you a free bottle with your first order. We love working, like I said, in the Hudson County area. We do a ton of deliveries there, and adding more routes to the stop, adding more stops to the route would only be, something we'd be excited to do.
All right. So mention Peter B, that is, because there's other Peters that are less important. It has to be Peter B. Marc Aschoff, co-owner of Tribeca Beverage Company. Thank you so much. This has been a fun segment.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate the opportunity.
And, absolutely. And we want to see you back here. Is that a promise?
I'll be here tomorrow.
Oh, look at that.
I'll be here tomorrow with a jug of water. With a jug.
Because, we're not filming tomorrow, but,
I'll be here with 2 jugs of water. We'll have water coolers everywhere. Your whole staff will be set up.
Exactly. Well, Mark, thanks again. Really, really appreciate it. All right, folks, join us next week for The Pulse on everything you need to know. I'm Peter Biancamano. I hope you have a great week, everybody.